It's been a month now since I found out the truth, but honestly, it still feels like yesterday. I remember that day so clearly, how everything seemed to slow down when I walked into our honeymoon suite and saw them. Him, my best man, the guy I trusted more than anyone, tangled up with my wife. They weren't just kissing, they looked caught in a moment that screamed betrayal. I swear, my stomach dropped clear out of my feet like my insides had turned to stone. I had been so excited about this trip, our planned escape from the world, just us. The suite was just as I imagined, soft lighting, a view of the city skyline, everything perfect, or so I thought. Then I saw her, my wife, her face pressed against his chest, hands gripping his shirt like she was trying to hide something. And him, my supposed best man, all too comfortable, like he'd been waiting for this moment forever. The sight of them together made my head spin, like the room was tilting sideways. I didn't say a word at first. I just stood there rooted to the spot watching them. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. My palms turned cold and clammy as my mind raced. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but I just kept staring. Suddenly she caught sight of me out of the corner of her eye. Her face flickered with shock, then guilt, like she'd been caught at something she knew was wrong, but it was too late for apologies. "Hey, what are you doing here?" she asked, voice trembling, trying to sound casual but cracking under the weight of her lies. My voice was hoarse, raw with betrayal. "I think you know exactly what I'm doing here." I clenched my fists, feeling the rough fabric of my jeans digging into my palms. "How long has this been going on?" They both froze. Her eyes darted away like she was trying to hide something behind her eyelids. His jaw twitched, hands shoved into his pockets, but there was no denying the guilt written all over him. I could smell the perfume she'd worn that day, sweet and floral, but now it seemed sickly and false, like it was mocking me. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, voice louder now. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might have a heart attack. My head was swimming and my stomach clenched so tight I thought I'd be sick. This wasn't just a fling. This was her cheating with the one person I thought was my brother in everything but blood. She looked like she wanted to disappear, but she couldn't. Instead, she muttered something about being sorry, but her words sounded empty and rehearsed. Sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it when you're caught red-handed. Sorry doesn't fix a betrayal that feels like it's ripping my chest apart. I wanted to smash something, anything. My fists clenched so tightly that my nails pressed into my palms. The room seemed smaller, the air thicker with the scent of betrayal and regret. I didn't cry, I couldn't. All I felt was this cold, burning rage, like a fire spreading through my veins. I realized then that my wedding, my whole life with her, was built on a lie. I was drowning in betrayal, and I didn't know how I was going to get out of this mess. But one thing was clear: I couldn't stay there. I had to get out, to breathe, to figure out what to do next. I looked at her. One last time, her face streaked with tears I didn't believe. "Get out," I told her, voice steady but icy. "Get out and don't come back." She hesitated, then nodded, voice trembling. "I'll pack my things. I'm sorry, really." "Sorry isn't enough," I snapped back before she could leave. "You're done. You're out of my life." As I watched her leave the room, I felt a strange mix of relief and rage, but mostly I felt the crushing weight of betrayal. The worst part, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I had a plan brewing in my mind, and I was about to make her regret ever crossing me. Now I just had to figure out how to make her pay. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. I kept replaying that moment in the suite, trying to find some way to make sense of it all. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her guilt, her fear, and I felt this gnawing emptiness in my chest. I didn't cry, not really, but my stomach churned constantly like I'd swallowed a bucket of acid. I knew I had to do something. Sitting around feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to get me anywhere. I started digging through her things, her phone, her emails, anything that might give me a clue. Her phone was a gold mine. I found texts, flirty messages, plans for secret meetups. It was all there, laid out like a map of her betrayal. One message caught my eye. It was a late-night text from her, sent just 2 days before the wedding. She was talking about the thrill and how much she missed him. I read it over and over, feeling every word punch me in the gut. She'd been planning this for a while, maybe even before she said yes to me. The evidence was right there, proof she'd been hiding something for months. I also found a hotel reservation made under a fake name for the night of our wedding. It was made for her and him. I held the paper in my hand, feeling my fingers go numb. This wasn't just a fling, it was planned, deliberate. My stomach twisted with anger. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting. How had I missed all the signs? The late nights. She'd excuse herself for the little things she'd brush off. She was sneaking around right in front of my face. I sat there staring at those papers until my head hurt. Then I made a decision. If she was going to betray me like this, I'd give her a taste of her own medicine, but in a way she'd never see coming. I had to be smart. I needed a plan that would hit her where it hurt, where she'd remember it every single day. That's when I started setting my trap. I reached out to his closest friend, someone I knew I could trust, and asked him to get me access to her social media accounts. It took some convincing, but eventually he agreed. I wanted to know what she really thought about all this, how deep her lies went. I also created a fake account, one that looked like a secret admirer, and started sending her flirty messages. I'd seen her flirting in her texts. I wanted her to believe she was being chased again, to make her feel hunted. Over the next few days, I watched her reactions closely. She'd respond to my fake admirer with all the excitement she'd been missing, sending emojis, making plans. I could see her craving the attention even as she was already caught. That's when the plan clicked into place. I would confront her not with anger but with the evidence she'd left behind. I wanted her to see how easily I'd uncovered her lies, how much I'd been paying attention. One evening, I invited her over for what I called a serious talk. She came in looking sheepish, avoiding eye contact. I could see the guilt etched into her face, but I kept my voice calm, controlled. I laid out the evidence piece by piece, her texts, her hotel reservation, the fake admirer. I watched her face drain of color as she realized I knew everything. "You thought you could get away with this," I said sharply. "You thought I'd never find out, but I did." My voice was cold but steady. "This isn't just a mistake, is it? You planned this, didn't you?" She looked down, trembling. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was stupid." "No," I interrupted. "You were dishonest. You betrayed everything we built. And I'm done being the fool who lets this slide." Her eyes welled up with tears, but I wasn't moved. My stomach was still clenched and my hands were shaking from the rage simmering just beneath the surface. I'd planned all this carefully. She needed to see she couldn't get away with it. "I want my keys," I said, voice tight. "And I want you out of my life tonight." She reached into her purse, fumbling, tears streaming down her face. I knew this wasn't the end, just the beginning of the fallout. But for now, I was finally taking control. I handed her the keys, watching her leave, feeling a strange mix of relief and cold satisfaction. As she disappeared out the door, I looked around the apartment. It was quiet, eerily empty. I felt the weight of betrayal settle over me again, but I also knew I'd taken the first step toward reclaiming my life. I'd start over, rebuild myself from this wreckage. But I was never going to forget this. Never let anyone get that close again without paying the price. And with that, I knew I'd be ready for whatever came next. The silence in my apartment was deafening after she left. I stood there for a good long while, just staring at the doorway, feeling that strange mix of emptiness and, oddly, a tiny spark of relief. The adrenaline from confronting her still buzzed through my veins, but beneath it all, I could feel the gnawing ache of betrayal. That ache was sharp, persistent, like a wound that refused to heal. I knew I had to keep going. The fact that she'd betrayed me with my best man wasn't just a slap in the face. It was a direct hit to everything I believed in. I didn't want her to walk away without feeling the consequences, without knowing how badly she'd screwed up. That's when I decided I'd strike back in a way she'd never forget. I'd make her regret crossing me. Over the next few days, I got to work. First, I changed the locks, took back the keys, and made sure she had no way of coming back uninvited. I removed all traces of her from the apartment, packed up her things, and left them in the garage. It was symbolic, cutting her out entirely, like she never existed here. For me, that was the first step in reclaiming my space and my dignity. Then I started to plan my revenge. It had to be calculated, precise. I didn't want to just dump all my hurt on her. I wanted her to feel it deep, to understand that her actions had consequences. That's when I reached out to a private investigator I knew. I hired him to dig into her financials, see if she'd been hiding anything else, maybe even where she was staying now. I needed dirt, something tangible. Meanwhile, I kept monitoring her social media. She was posting things, trying to pretend her world hadn't been shattered. But I could see her trying to put on a brave face, covering her tracks, deleting messages, but I had already taken screen captures. I wasn't going to let her erase all evidence of her betrayal. I was collecting it piece by piece like a jigsaw puzzle that would eventually come together and crush her. One night she called me. Her voice was shaky, apologetic. I didn't bother to pretend I was interested in a reconciliation. I told her flatly, "You lost your chance, don't call me again." She begged, tried to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. I just hung up and knew I'd need to make her understand. This wasn't just about cheating, it was about respect, trust, and dignity. And she'd obliterated all three. So I devised my ultimate plan. I wanted her to see what she'd lost, not just in words, but visually. I reached out to her best friend, the one who'd helped me get access to her social media. I told her I'd found some incriminating evidence, something that would make her see the truth. I asked if she could help me stage a little surprise for her. She agreed, and I arranged for her to meet me at a cafe, giving her a flash drive with everything I'd collected, screenshots, messages, the hotel reservations, the evidence of her planning it all. The night I pulled her into that cafe, I kept calm. She looked nervous, eyes darting around. I slid the flash drive across the table and said, "You want to know what I found? Everything. Every message, every plan. Your lies are laid bare." Her face paled as she read the files I handed her. It wasn't just about catching her, this was about making her face her own dirty secrets. "How could you do this?" I asked. Quietly, my voice was steady, but inside I was burning. "You betrayed me, our vows, everything, and for what? A quick thrill." She looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "I was stupid," she whispered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please, I'll fix things." "You can't fix this," I cut her off. "You broke everything between us, and I'm not the fool anymore." I leaned in closer. "You're going to pay for this, trust me." I handed her a letter, something I'd been working on for days. It detailed everything she'd done, how I'd found out, and what I was planning to do next. I told her I'd be taking legal steps to end this nightmare. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, and I wanted her to understand that crossing me meant consequences. As I left that cafe that night, her eyes looked hollow, defeated. I knew this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity, about showing her she couldn't just betray and walk away. She had to face the fallout, and I was just getting started. Now I was ready to move forward without her, and I knew exactly how I was going to do it. The next few days were a blur of planning and preparing. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, angry, betrayed, but still trying to keep my head clear. Every time I thought about her, a fire ignited inside me, but I knew I had to stay disciplined. This wasn't about impulsive revenge. It was about making her suffer in a way that stick. I took the evidence I'd gathered, screenshots, her messages, the hotel reservation, the fake admirer conversations, and compiled everything into an airtight dossier. It was detailed, precise, and devastating. I wanted her to see in black and white just how deep her deception ran. I also reached out to a lawyer I trusted, just to make sure I was on the right track legally. I wasn't planning anything illegal, just making sure I had everything in order if I needed it. Meanwhile, I kept an eye on her social media. She was posting more now, pretending to be strong, trying to act like she wasn't drowning in guilt. But I could see the cracks. The way she avoided certain angles, the way her texts seemed forced. She was trying to cover her tracks. I watched her slip up a few times, and each one felt like a small victory. Then I decided it was time for the final move. I set up a meeting with her at a neutral place, an empty parking lot near her place where I knew no one else would be around. I told her I had something important to show her, not an apology, not a plea, just the truth. She agreed, probably expecting some half-hearted explanation. But she had no idea what I actually had planned. When I saw her walking toward me, nervous and tense, I felt that familiar surge of anger. She looked different, tired, defeated, like she knew she'd pushed everything too far. As she approached, I pulled out a small envelope and handed it to her. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a printed copy of all the evidence, her texts, the hotel reservation, the screenshots of her flirtations, even the fake admirer conversations we'd set up. Her eyes widened and she stared at the pages as if they'd come from a different world. "You've been caught," I said simply. "This is everything, and I want you to understand you're not just losing me. You're losing respect, trust, everything we had, and I won't let you walk away like this." Her face was pale, eyes brimming with tears. "Please, I didn't mean for it to go so far. I was stupid. I made a mistake. Don't do this." "I'm doing this," I told her, voice cold, "because you need to remember what you did. This isn't just about me finding out. It's about you losing everything because of what you chose to do." She looked like she might collapse. Her hands shook as she tried to speak, but no words came out. The truth was, she knew her lies had been exposed and she had no way to spin her way out of it. That's when I handed her a piece of paper, a formal letter summing up what I was doing next. I told her I was filing for divorce and I'd be taking legal action to ensure she paid for her betrayal. I told her to leave right then and there. And she did quietly, without a fight. No begging, no promises. I think she saw the look in my eyes and understood this was the end of the line for us. As she disappeared into her car, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The anger was still there, but it was tempered by a sense of control. I'd taken back my power and made her face the consequences. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the evidence on my laptop. It felt surreal, like I'd just stepped out of a nightmare. But I knew I'd survived it. I'd done what I had to do. And now I was finally free to start over, to rebuild from the ashes. This whole experience taught me a lot. Trust can be shattered in a heartbeat, and sometimes revenge isn't about hurting someone else. It's about reclaiming your own dignity and making sure they understand what they've lost. Whatever happens next, I'll never let anyone take me for granted again. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. I thought I'd feel relieved, maybe even liberated after confronting her and finally cutting ties. But the truth is, there's a certain emptiness that settles in once the rage fades. I spent days just sitting in my apartment, staring at the walls, replaying everything like a bad movie I couldn't turn off. People tell you that time heals wounds. Maybe it does, but right now, it just feels like I'm in a holding pattern, waiting for the dust to settle, waiting for my mind to catch up with what just happened. My body still reacts to the memory. My stomach clenches when I think of her, and my palms get sweaty when I remember how I exposed her secrets. The scene of her reading those papers, still fresh in my mind, reminds me that I finally took control. I've also started to realize how much I'd let her manipulate me, ignoring the little red flags that had been there all along. The late-night texts, the excuses, the vague answers. I've been so wrapped up in the wedding planning and making everything perfect that I ignored my gut. Now looking back, I see all the signs I missed, how she'd dodge questions and hide her phone. I was so blind, so trusting, and that trust turned out to be my biggest mistake. But I'm trying to see the bigger picture now. I know I need to move on, to take what I've learned and grow from it. I started going to the gym, trying to rebuild my strength. Every workout is a reminder that I still control my body, even if my heart feels shattered. I also reached out to a counselor. I don't need to go into details, but talking through the betrayal has helped me process some of the anger and sadness. Still, some nights are tough. I catch myself thinking about what could have been, about how I was so sure she was the one. It's a punch every time, but now I remind myself that I deserve better. I'll find someone who respects me, who values honesty. I won't settle for less again. As for her, I haven't heard from her since that night. I imagine she's probably trying to save face with her friends, pretending she's fine. Maybe she's thinking about what she lost. Honestly, I don't care anymore. What matters is that I took my power back. I made her face her betrayal, and I made damn sure she'd remember it. The most surprising thing is how much clarity I've gained. I see now that revenge isn't just about hurting her. It's about reclaiming myself. The pain, the heartbreak, it's part of the process. I can't erase what happened, but I can use it to become stronger. One thing I want to say to anyone reading this: if you're going through something similar, just remember you don't have to suffer in silence. Standing up for yourself, even if it means some pain now, is better than living under someone else's shadow. Be honest with yourself, trust your instincts, and never let anyone treat you like second best. I'm not healed, not fully, but I'm taking back control. That's what matters. I'll keep moving forward one step at a time, and maybe someday I'll find happiness again. Until then, I'll keep building that future one day, one choice at a time. If you want to hear about the last step I took, how I finally let go and closed that chapter forever, I'm ready to tell it. That final step was the hardest, but also the most necessary. I remember standing in front of my closet, looking at the keys I was about to hand over. They sat heavy in my palm, symbolic, I guess. Keys to a life I thought I was building with her, now gone, replaced with a quiet resolve. I never thought I'd be the person to do this, but there I was, about to make a clean break. I grabbed a small box, gathered her things, some clothes, a few personal items, and set everything inside. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything I'd been through, everything I'd uncovered, and everything I was about to do. I pulled out a piece of paper I'd written earlier, a simple note. "Goodbye. You lost me for good." I signed my name, folded it neatly, and left it on top of her stuff. Then I took her keys, unlocked the front door, and placed the box just outside. As I closed the door behind me, I felt a strange mix of relief and finality. It was like closing a chapter I never wanted to open in the first place. I felt lighter in my chest, but also more determined than ever. That night, I went to bed knowing I'd pushed through the chaos, the heartbreak, the betrayal. I'd taken back my life, piece by piece. In the days that followed, I filed for divorce. I handed over the evidence I had collected to my lawyer, knowing it would help the process. I didn't want her to think she could get away with what she did. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences, not just in my eyes, but legally. I was done playing the fool, done pretending I was okay with her betrayal. I also took the time to focus on myself. I started therapy, reconnected with friends I'd pushed aside, and put effort into rebuilding my confidence. I realized I'd been living for her, and now I had to rebuild for myself. It wasn't easy. Some nights the pain crept back in, and I'd have to remind myself that I was stronger than this. One day, I looked in the mirror and saw a version of myself that was scarred but resilient. I didn't forget what she did, but I was learning to live with it. That was the lesson I had to accept. Sometimes people betray you and you can't change that. But what you can change is how you respond. I want anyone reading this to know, betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define you. When you're ready, take control. Cut out what's hurting you, even if it hurts at first. Trust yourself again. Trust that you'll find happiness beyond the pain. I did it by facing everything head on, and I refused to let someone else's choices keep me down. So I handed over the keys, closed that chapter, and stepped into a new beginning. No more secrets, no more lies, just honesty with myself. The heartbreak was real, but so was my resolve. I've learned that sometimes you have to burn things to the ground to rebuild properly. And right now, I'm more than ready for what comes next. Because in the end, the only person who can truly save you, who can truly heal, is yourself.